I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
Welcome, everybody, to episode lucky number 13. On today's slate, we're going to talk about the KBO, or the Korean Baseball League. And then later on, we're going to get into the NFL scheduling that dropped last night. So first off, KBO. First little glimpse of sports being back in today's society. So I've watched a couple games. They're usually on like 5:30 in the morning, but ESPN is re-airing them around 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock for more people, for a bigger audience. So I think initially what you think is ESPN saw this opportunity for sports finally needing back some sort of live sports, and they hopped right on that train to be able to broadcast it and get some sort of views, because they're definitely struggling with views right now.
Yeah, it's incredible for the KBO. They go from just this random South Korean baseball league to like the most popular sports league in the entire world.
Yeah.
Just because of Corona. That's insane for them. I want to do a quick birthday shout out to Bayuk Jinwoo of the Hanwha Eagles. I love on the KBO website, they just have all birthdays of all their players. I thought that was very interesting. So I had to do a quick shout out for my boy right there. But yeah.
So a little background around the league for those who do not know. There's 10 teams. It was founded in 1982, so it's pretty new. And I think I would compare the level of the KBO to that of like the minor leagues, AAA, AA baseball, MLB. The team names around those teams, because some of them are like the Samsung Lions, the SK Wahims. Like the names of the teams are based on the businesses or conglomerates that own them, not like the cities that they're in. So, like I said, the Samsung Lions.
Yeah.
And another really interesting point about this league I saw is it's mainly only Korean players. Like each roster has a cap of 3 foreign players on their team.
It's really interesting, yeah.
So, and also, if you have a foreign pitcher start the game, you can't have any other foreign players in the game at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I wonder why that is, why they want to make it really South Korean only. Maybe that's to kind of keep the skill level on a even playing field. But yeah, it's really interesting. I always love when sports, really baseball, I think basketball is starting to get like this, but especially soccer, when every single country in the world that participates in sport participates in that specific sport.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. Usually that makes it so there's just a bigger pool of great players. I don't know if we've seen too many players come out of South Korea or too many players come out of that KBO league specifically, since it is a rather new league, but I know there's a lot of great Japanese players, even really good Chinese players that come into the MLB.
Yeah, I think that with them being the only live sports on now, I think it will give them a lot more credibility, and you can see more players probably joining the MLB and getting those contracts. I think another really like this league is very has its own like flavor and style, is the mascots. Like the dinos, they have a huge dinosaur called Swole Daddy, which is pretty hilarious. And then I was watching another game. They have like it's kind of like with the Asian culture, very anime type things oriented.
Yeah.
So a lot of the mascots are those anime type characters in the stands. And I thought it was really funny how there's no fans in the stands, but there's still like cheerleaders and hype people like on the microphone trying to hype up like themselves, I guess. I don't know what their job would be.
Yeah, no, it's really like just reminiscent of, I think, the Americans' point of view of like what we view Korean culture and what we view that anime culture. You have a bunch of just cheerleaders kind of cheering, not really know what's going on, but they're really told to cheer. They have those great mascots, Swole Daddy, one of the GOAT mascots in the entire world right now. Gotta love them.
Yeah. And then another thing, the all-time leading hits leader, he's still in the league. He's on the Twins. His name is Park Young-tak, and he wears like, he doesn't wear well, also before I get into what he wears, he has almost 2,500 hits, which is pretty good considering how young the league is. And since he's been playing for since 2002, so he's really probably considered one of the greatest of all time in that league. But also he doesn't wear like rec specs or goggles. He wears like regular reading glasses when he's playing, which is pretty funny as well.
Yeah, just some good personalities in the KBO. I've actually been reading that even before Corona, this league's actually been tripling their revenue and tripling their size since 2003. So even without Corona, this league was kind of rising up. I know they have really fun fan interaction at those games as well. I know this one pitcher that used to play in the MLB who switched over to KBO, Josh Limbaugh. He said he's never had more fun playing baseball in his life than he is in the KBO right now. So KBO, really smart that they reopened and they're playing games. I know one of the major statistics on their website as well is games missed, and they have a big fat donut right now for games missed. So hopefully they can keep that going.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch some more games. It's good. It's fun to watch them. It's decent baseball. It's not anything to get bored about. It's sports. And I know a lot of people that are into sports betting will definitely put some money down for these games. All right. So going into our next topic, obviously the big one, the NFL schedule dropping last night. And since there's not really any sports going on besides the KBO that we previously mentioned, a lot of sports networks and channels are going to really try to get as much out of this NFL schedule drop as possible, like the draft. So some of the biggest takeaways I saw, or the opening game it's a really good game. Chiefs versus Texans, two star quarterbacks playing each other. We don't know what the Texans' skill level is going to be since they traded Hopkins, but they got Brandon Cooks in return. But that's going to be a fun game to watch. Two young quarterbacks. And, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the Bill O'Brien dynamic is going to be with this Houston Texans team all year. I know even J.J. Watt kind of alluded to the point that he was a little displeased with the DeAndre Hopkins trade, as I'm sure Deshaun Watson was as well. But getting into the schedule, there's actually some really, really good week one games. Another one I wanted to highlight, obviously, Saints-Bucks. They're going to play each other again later on in the year, but that's going to be a really fun, exciting game. I know a lot of NFL fans are really looking forward to seeing Rob Gronkowski play again, resurrecting his NFL career from his WWE short stint. So, yeah,
he still has like the championship belt, so I don't know how that's going to like carry over to the NFL.
I would absolutely love to see at the end of the year Rob Gronkowski hoisting up the Lombardi Trophy with a WWE belt around his waist. That would be absolutely legendary. There's been some WWE football players, Brock Lesnar, not very good in the NFL.
The Rock was on Miami when he was in college.
Yeah, The Rock. I know he had some injuries, but I'm not sure he would have been too good of an NFL player anyway. So maybe Rob Gronkowski, one of the best cross WWE sport athletes to do it.
Also, I think the biggest takeaway from this whole schedule is that the NFL is planning to play their full season. They're releasing this whole schedule to show that they're serious about starting on time, and being able to play out the whole season, and they're not going to miss any games. We don't know what the fan aspects of those games is going to be, whether it's going to be fans in the stands or no fans, but the NFL is definitely on a train without any breaks, and they're going straight forward.
Yeah, I saw the NFL actually with these schedule releases partnered with SeatGeek, so that really tells me that not only do they plan on playing these games on time when they want to play these games, but they also really want fans in the stands, or else they wouldn't have SeatGeek all over all these schedule releases. So I actually went to SeatGeek to try to see if I can buy tickets right now. Not available, but really looking forward to buying some tickets. Definitely going to catch some East Coast games this year.
Yeah. So with each division, like say for example the NFC East, they'll play one division in their conference, one division out in the other conference, and then they'll play like the Giants will play the third place teams from last year. So I have each matchup for each division. So the NFC East will play the NFC North, NFC West. The NFC North will play the NFC East, AFC South. The AFC South will play the NFC North, and AFC North. The NFC North will play the AFC South and NFC South. The NFC South will play the NFC North, AFC West. The AFC West will play the NFC South and the AFC South. The AFC East will play the AFC West and NFC West. The NFC West will play the AFC East and NFC East. So I think the biggest takeaway from this is I think the hardest schedule, with the luck of the draw, the hardest schedule, according to Las Vegas, is the Falcons, because the NFC South will have to play the matchups of the NFC North, so that the Vikings, Bears, Packers. So those are two playoff teams. The Bears went 8-8, which is they're even if their team isn't a playoff team, they still have an incredible defense, and it's always gonna be scared to line up against them. And then they have to play the AFC West too, which is the reigning Super Bowl champions, Denver Broncos, and the Chargers with the young quarterback, and Tyrod probably playing whatever throughout most of the season. But the Chargers still have a great defense.
Yeah, I think Vegas, even though they say that the Falcons do have the hardest schedule, I think by them still favoring them in 7 games, I know 7-9 isn't a very good record, but for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, having the hardest schedule and still being favored in 7 games, I think Vegas has some hope with the Falcons this year. Maybe some blind hope. I think the Falcons are one of those teams as of recent that very talented team, but haven't seemed to be able to put it together with Matt Ryan and company. So 7-9 over under. I would probably take the under on that one, but still very interesting. I know the Las Vegas Raiders have the second hardest schedule, which very unlucky for them. They're only favored in 5 games. Coming out of Las Vegas, and Las Vegas odds have their team with 5 wins. I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah. And also, I believe the Jets have the third hardest schedule, which is, or fifth hardest according to Vegas. But
yeah,
I think if you look at it, it's a lot more different with the eye test rather than saying what Vegas says. I mean, at the beginning of their schedule, they play the Bills, 49ers, Colts have a decent pass rush. I mean, with this young quarterback, young offensive line, it's going to be a struggle with the opening, I would say, 5 games or 5 out of the first 6 games. That's going to be a very hard schedule for Sam Darnold and their young offensive line. They have to play the Bills, the 49ers, Colts who added DeForest Buckner, the Broncos who still have Von Miller and Chubb, the Cardinals who they're getting better, and then they go to play the Chargers. So those are just very hard schedules. I had kind of had high hopes for the Jets going into next year. They finished the season strong. They went 6-1 when Darnold came back. But this is just a really hard first even 8 weeks because they play the Bills again and then the Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, I think that division is still pretty open right now. I think the Bills should probably, and rightfully so, be the favorites going into that division. They've made the playoffs the past couple of seasons, but the Jets, again, if Sam Darnold didn't go around at the beginning of the season kissing everybody, then we could be looking at a very different result for the Jets and Sam Darnold. But a big takeaway I have from these Vegas odds also is that there's only one team that aren't favored to win one game all season. So only one team have 0 favored games, and that's the team with the 20th ranked schedule as well. So they just flat out think this team's going to be garbage, and that is Minshew Mania and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not putting any respect on the stash, but in all seriousness, I think the Jaguars this season, I think they're for sure rebuilding, but I think they should be better than 0 wins. I think they should be favored in at least a handful of games.
Yeah, but even if you can say they'll be favored, but you don't know if they're going to tank, try to get Trevor Lawrence for next year. I mean, I don't know if Vegas really takes that into account that much, but looking at their schedule, they have a pretty tough schedule too.
Yeah.
Because they play the AFC North, which is the Steelers, Ravens, the improving Browns, and then they play the NFC North as well. So you have two playoff teams with the Packers, Vikings, and the Bears who have a hard defense. So that's a pretty tough schedule. And the AFC South is improving. The Colts have gotten better. They have a win now roster. The Titans made the playoffs. Texans made the playoffs. So that's a pretty tough schedule for the Jaguars right there.
Yeah, they're looking at the outside, looking into that very tough division. The AFC North and the NFC North, no matter how good those teams are, I think those are always tough away games, especially later on in the season, because you have to go up to Lambeau. You have to go up to Soldier Field in Chicago. So those are really tough games. But I think the point you alluded to with the Jaguars maybe tanking for Lawrence, I think they really like Gardner Minshew, not only as a quarterback, where he did show promise last year, nothing too spectacular, but he definitely raised some eyebrows. He was a low round pick. I believe he got picked in the 4th round out of Washington State. So not only do they see that as a positive, but Jacksonville is one of those places where it's a low market team and you really need marketable players to sell jerseys, sell tickets. And I think they saw Gardner Minshew, this really eccentric, just fun looking guy, and they really wanted to market around them. I know they had Minshew Day where they handed out mustaches and headbands at the gate. So I think a team like Jacksonville, they really need a quarterback like that where he's really marketable. Not only do they need a good quarterback, but they need a marketable quarterback. So I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to hold tryouts for their future quarterback position all year with Gardner Minshew. I know they just signed Mike Glennon yesterday. Actually, he's not going to be the starter at any point for them unless Gardner Minshew gets injured. But I think the Jaguars really do want Gardner Minshew to be their quarterback, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think this year will kind of test out Gardner Minshew, but even if he does play well, but they still have a bad roster and they're in position to get Trevor Lawrence, I just don't think really if you're in love with your quarterback for a marketing standpoint, I don't think that's good enough to pass over Trevor Lawrence, who some people are saying that is the best prospect since Andrew Luck at the quarterback position.
Yeah, for sure. So other teams getting into these favorites with the schedule release. I know that all the opponents have been already predetermined a couple months in advance to this, but it's really important with aligning where teams play, not only with the time slots, but how many home games do they have in a row? How many away games they have in a row? And a team that got really, really lucky with that is the Baltimore Ravens. They're favored in all 16 games this year. Their closest game is a late game against the Eagles, but even that, for that to be their hardest game, according to Vegas, is really generous. I mean, they had a great season next year, and I think Lamar Jackson should probably be early betting favorites to be the MVP next season.
Yeah, I feel like going along with that, I feel like the two best teams in the NFL, arguably the Ravens and the Chiefs, they kind of really lucked out with their schedules. You'd think that these are the two best teams. They should really kind of be put through the ringer. But like you said, the Ravens are favored in 16 of their games, and arguably the closest game they have will be the Eagles game. But looking at this Chiefs schedule, the Chiefs kind of it's a decent schedule, but the way it panned out, they're going to play in a lot of those cold climates earlier in the season to get those out of the way. Colin Cowherd kind of alluded to this in his in the Herd show, how the Chiefs are going to be able to play in those colder climates early in the season, so it's going to be easy to pass, and then they're going to play in those hot climates later in the season. It'll be cooled down. So they kind of just lucked out, not with the games, but more of the placement of the games, like you said.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about how the teams that these organizations were going to face were released earlier, but then the actual placement of those games were released yesterday. So you see how the Super Bowl champions really lucked out and probably can make another Super Bowl run.
Yeah, for sure. Another really interesting takeaway I have from the schedule release is that a handful of teams got the maximum amount of primetime games you could play, which is 5. And the Patriots were one of those teams. I just thought that was really interesting that the NFL was so confident, and probably rightfully so, in the Patriots organization and turning out a good product this year. But just with Jarrett Stidham and just that uncertainty at that quarterback position. Not only the quarterback position, but the entire roster has really been gutted the last couple of years. I think it was just interesting that Roger Goodell and the schedule makers had faith in having the Patriots play in primetime so much this year.
Yeah, I think a fault of the NFL sometimes is with those primetime games, especially Monday night. We kind of see less than stellar games, and you have pretty bad performances, and that kind of stems from the quarterback position. So we don't know like how Jared Stidham's going to be able to perform on those primetime games, and then if as a result of that, are they going to lose viewers because of the performances? I mean, looking at their primetime games, they play the Seahawks, the Jets, the Ravens, which is going to be a tough game, the Rams, and then the Bills as well. So, I mean, those are just hard games for a young second-year quarterback to be thrown into right away in his first season he's starting.
Yeah, just getting into the Monday night schedule a little bit. I mean, just really interesting. Week 1, 2 Monday night games. You have the Steelers at Giants, and then you have the Titans at Broncos. So really weird, interesting matchups. None of these teams really are rivals in a sense. I know the Titans and the Broncos are both in the AFC, but other than that, really no headlines going into those games. No two players on opposite sides of the ball to really look out for. So just really interesting that they slotted those two games to be the week 1 Monday night football games. I've never really been a fan of Monday night football for that reason of just the lack of great games. But going into Sunday night, that's usually the primetime games. Week 1, it's at LA, opening the new stadium. I saw DeMarcus Lawrence already tweeted, can't wait to spoil the opener for the Rams. Can't wait to see the new Rams stadium. I think the NFL kind of cut a deal with the Rams a little bit. Hey, if we give you a couple primetime games, 1 Monday night game, 1 Sunday night game at your new stadium, then we'll promote it, help fund it a little bit. So I think that's what happened a little bit there. But some really good Sunday night games. I think week 15, San Francisco at Dallas could be really intriguing. I think even the Broncos at Kansas City in week 13 could be really interesting depending how the Broncos play this season.
Yeah, going back to I'll talk about the Sunday night schedule, but I just want to talk about Monday night for a little bit.
Yeah.
I just think the NFL, they need to really fix their Monday night games. First point is this kind of a fault of ESPN and not the NFL itself. They need to fix their announcers immediately. Once they lost Gruden, it just kind of went downhill. They had Jason Witten and Booger McFarland, and then I forgot the other guy's name, Trestor, I think, maybe.
Yeah, they're on a carousel with announcers.
Yeah, they just need to. I think they really, first off, to fix the games themselves. A lot of people even click off the games just because the announcers are bad. So I think they need to solidify those announcers to have a great combination. Like Sunday Night Football has Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. There's Aikman and Buck and Romo and the other guy I forgot. I'm
Al Michaels.
What?
Al Michaels?
No, not Al Michaels. Who's Romo with? We'll pass it, but they just Monday Night Football needs to really pick their point, pick their group, and that will help boost ratings a lot. But also with the games, the combinations of the games that they have are just not really ticket selling games. They need to fix those, and more people will be excited for Monday Night Football again.
Yeah, with Monday Night Football, I think they're trying too hard to get somebody like a Tony Romo with a big name. He was just an NFL player, and maybe that works out. I mean, it didn't work out with Jason Witten, didn't work out with Booger McFarland, who was an ex-NFL player as well. They just need to get somebody, not for the namesake, but just a good announcer, somebody who knows football, regardless of them being in the NFL or not. So, I think that's a really important point you just made.
And then moving on to Sunday Night Football, I think they have a really, really good Sunday Night Football schedule this year. Just like you said, opening up with the Cowboys-Rams in that new stadium. I think that's going to be a really good matchup. You have the new look Cowboys offense, and then the Showtime Rams, and see what McVay can do from last year missing the playoffs, see how he can bounce back. But looking at other games throughout the year, we have a Packers-Titans game, which the Packers at Week 16, Packers have a pretty great defense. It really helped them win a lot of games, see how they can match up against Derrick Henry's running attack. But I'm very pleased with this Sunday Night Football schedule this year.
Yeah, yet again, a lot of Cowboys games on the Sunday night slate. Hopefully, just for viewership-wise, some of these teams that you see a lot in primetime, we see a lot of Bills primetime games as well. Hopefully, these are good teams. Another interesting point, I think the NFL is betting a little bit too hard on the Rams being good this season. They've been gutting their roster kind of the past 2 years, ever since that Super Bowl appearance and kind of that Super Bowl dud that they laid with Jared Goff and company.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Rams are going to be too good of a team, but really interesting dynamic going into this season with 2 more playoff teams added. So we're going to see potentially divisions with, instead of 3 teams coming out of that division, possibly all 4 could. I think the NFC West could be a sleeping contender for all of their teams making the playoffs this season. I know they only favored the Cardinals to win, I believe, 4 games this season, which maybe I'm a Cardinals fan being a little bit biased here, but looking at their schedule, I think it's very plausible that they could win 9 games. They don't have the toughest schedule in the world. They do have 3 East Coast games, which I'll definitely be going to all of those, but definitely if the Rams pick it up, Seahawks are always going to be good year in and year out. I can't see the 49ers falling off just yet, so I think that's for sure a division to watch going into this season with the increased amount of playoff teams.
Yeah, I think looking at our Super Bowl predictions, we were really high on the NFC West. I mean, throughout the whole decade, the 2010s and the decade before, they produced Super Bowl teams. Seahawks were in 2, the Cardinals were in 1 the previous decade, the 49ers were in 1. They just produced that schedule. I mean, that division's very tough. They produce good, strong football teams. But yeah, looking at the Cardinals' schedule, I mean, doesn't look like that hard. I just think they have a really young roster, a young head coach. And I think this season, I don't know if they'll be able to make the playoffs, but I think they'll kind of be like that type of team that will be very competitive until the end and maybe be the last team looking into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then the year after, next year, they'll be the team looking in, and then the year after that, they'll kind of be able to make that jump and go into the playoffs like you see a lot of teams make.
Yeah, I think with a team like the Arizona Cardinals this season, I think all these off-season workout programs are so vital for their growth, especially with a young second-year head coach. So I think teams that were looking to make a big leap from last year, I think make a bit of a smaller leap than everybody expects them to because of Corona, because of all these virtual off-season programs instead of being in person. It's really important. So I think every single year there are a big turnout with the teams that are in the postseason last year and this year. It always changes. There's always at least 5 new teams in the playoffs every single year, which I love about the NFL. But I think this year expect to see less teams that made it last year miss it this year.
Yeah, definitely. Another team, like you said, throughout each year there's a lot of changes, fluctuations with the playoff pool, and going back onto like the strength of schedule, the 3 easiest schedules, Steelers, Browns, and Colts. I can see those 3 teams be able to make the jump into the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Browns really improved their roster throughout this year. They drafted Jedrick Wills, who can help that offensive line. I can see them really making a jump into the playoffs. Looking at their schedule, I mean, obviously they'll play their division, which is very tough. Steelers, Ravens, the Bengals. I don't know what the Bengals are going to be with Joe Burrow, but even playing at Cincinnati with the climate, it's always rainy in Ohio. It's going to be hard to play there too. I mean, the Browns are an Ohio team, but always playing the division rival at their home is always a tough game. But looking at the Browns' schedule, it's not too hard. They play the NFC East with the Cowboys and Redskins. That'll be a win for them. I mean, the Cowboys the Giants and Redskins, I'm sorry, that'll be a win for them. The Cowboys and Eagles might be a little hard for them, but their schedule is pretty easy, and I can see them going 9-7, maybe 10-6, and make it into the playoffs.
Yep. So, big welcome into the NFL for Joe Burrow. He's going to have to face the Baltimore Ravens, of course, twice at home. I mean, it's always hard playing in that NFC or AFC North, rather. But other than that, they have to play the Cowboys this year. They have to play that very tough Titans team next year. They very early on in the season have to play a really great defense in the Chargers. So I'm really going to be paying close attention to Joe Burrow and how he handles the pressure of all these new great defenses he's never faced. That's another thing I always love looking at right when these schedules drop, which rookies are going to face who and which rookies are by these schedules kind of set up for success and set up for failure. I know the Bengals faced the Washington Redskins with Chase Young this year as well, old teammates facing off each other. So it'd be really interesting to see if Chase Young could maybe get a sack on Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow did not get the luck of the draw with the schedule. He's playing a lot of ferocious pass rushes. Week 1, he's playing that Chargers with Nick Bosa. Yep. Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. That's going to be hard for him. First test, and then he's playing. Obviously, his division's tough too, but I really want Joe Burrow to succeed. But looking at the schedule for his first year, it's going to be really hard for him. And I was on NFL's Instagram. They posted a picture with Joe Burrow and Tua. I don't know. I don't really understand why they posted that. I don't understand it. Are they because Tua, we don't know if he's going to play this first year, so yeah. They're kind of inferring something that might not even happen, getting a lot of hopes up for something that is probably not going to happen because I don't see Tua being able to play his first year.
Yeah, no, they do, which helps out that cause. They do play week 15, I believe. Yeah, they do play week 15, where I think it's plausible if the Dolphins season starts out rough. They are playing the Patriots, the Jaguars, the 49ers, the Chargers. I think they could potentially win 1 or 2 games in there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dolphins make a quarterback change at some point in the season if Tua's healthy, if Tua's revving to go.
Yeah.
So I think it's not too far off the table to say that Joe Burrow with the Bengals are going to face Tua and the Dolphins at some point in the season. But if I had to bet right now, yeah, I'd probably agree and say Tua doesn't play too much this season, if all.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't even know about him, Fitzpatrick being not performing and Tua going into the lineup. I don't even know if Tua's going to play because of his injury.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's going to stack up with how he'll be able to be ready for the lineup, especially now because he can't even get in the room with a team doctor that can really see the severity of his injury.
Yeah, I always love watching those rookie quarterbacks play in the preseason as well. They haven't released the preseason schedules. They did play the opponents, but going to probably be disappointed to see the Dolphins not play with Tua in those preseason games. But somebody who I am very excited to play in those preseason games are Jordan Love with the Packers. Jordan Love has a very similar game to Aaron Rodgers, so really want to see how he grows and learns under Aaron Rodgers. Doubt I see Jordan Love on the field this season, though.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to see him on the field is if, 1, Rodgers gets hurt, or 2, they're getting blown out, or they're blowing a team out and they just put Jordan Love in to get some minutes. But I would like to see – I don't know if the NFL is going to be able to have preseason. I don't know if they're just going to go right into the regular season. But I definitely want to see Jordan Love get some minutes under center, whether it be the preseason or a regular season game. I just think he's a really exciting player, and you just don't know what you don't know what you're going to get by drafting him. You know his talent there, he has a high ceiling, but you don't know how it's going to be able to achieve that ceiling.
Yeah, going off of with another rookie quarterback, Jalen Hurts with the Eagles. The Eagles were another team, I think, blessed with not necessarily the opponents they're facing this year, as They do face the 49ers. They do face the Ravens, which are all out of division opponents. They do face the Packers as well and the Saints. So a pretty hard schedule for the Eagles, but with their breaks, a lot of home games in a row, not very tough away games they faced this year. They play at Arizona, they play at Cleveland. So not really that tough of home games. I wonder if we will see Jalen Hurts at any point in this season. Carson Wentz hasn't had the best injury history in the world, so pretty good for Carson Wentz this schedule release, but still, I don't think it's too far off the table to see Jalen Hurts play at some point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, even if Carson Wentz does have some injury problems. He's torn an ACL, and the backup Nick Foles won a Super Bowl because of an injury from Carson Wentz. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles even use Jalen Hurts for like a trick play, or have him in the backfield, or line up as receiver, or have Carson Wentz line up at receiver and have Hurts under center. I think they're going to try to put him in to a lot of different spots on the field just because he's such a great athlete, and just to see what he has, because he's fast, he's big, and he can throw the ball too. So there's a lot of different routes you can go with his skill set.
Yeah, I think another team kind of with a really hard schedule, maybe favorites to tank next season potentially, are the Carolina Panthers. They're only favored in one game this season. They did just sign their quarterback Teddy Bridgewater to pretty lengthy contract, 3 or 4 years. So I don't think it's too far off of thinking that the Panthers are going to start pretty tough this season, start out rocky, and then look at their quarterback situation if Teddy Bridgewater is not playing too good, or just look at their roster as a whole and say it's probably better if we rest some guys and not play up to our full capabilities this season. So I could see the Panthers picking top 5 next year in the draft.
And even looking at their schedule, it is pretty tough, but there's also, with a new quarterback, a new coach, there's also going to be some growing pain. So even if there is an easy game, it might be extra hard for them because, Teddy Bridgewater's got to get acclimated with Matt Rule, and the whole team has to kind of become one unit. And even with there's no training camp, there's no OTAs, so it's going to be hard to be able to create a cohesive unit over a Zoom call or something without any practices. So it's going to be even harder for a rookie coach and a new quarterback.
Yep.
Well, that's all we have for today. We hope you enjoyed the episode of talking about the KBO and the NFL schedule. We'll see you in the next episode.